we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Sue couldn't be here tonight. Neither could Jeff Goldman, and neither could Jess Kahn. So I'm just going to go around and say Julie's here. Zach, welcome. Your first meeting. Glad to have you. Tom and Colin and Brian and Chris and Melissa and Ellen. I think that's everybody. Okay.
Ellen, can I ask again the student rep's name?
So thank you. Emma can also not be here. Thank you for that. Emma Fortune.
Fortin, okay.
So let's see. Jeff. Jeff is a voting member, so I can appoint an alternate, right? I think I've got that right. Jess is not here. So since you're first, Colin, why don't you be the voting member tonight? Okay. Great. Okay, any public comment? Nobody from the public? Great. So we are going to jump into our presentation tonight. We have Mark West from West Environmental. And as you know, we hired Mark to do the prime wetlands mapping update for the town of Newmarket. We got a grant from PREPA, which is the Piscataqua Region Estuaries Project. That's great. And so Mark did the original prime wetlands mapping, what do we say, 2009?
No, 2001.
Oh, 2001. Somewhere.
Old days.
Old days. So the reason we wanted to do this was twofold. One is that, wetlands change, and we want to be accurate, because this is actually something that goes into our zoning maps, as well as being educational and informational to the public. But we also want to be fair to landowners if the wetlands have changed, and there's really new mapping, obviously, since 20-some years ago. So we're happy to have you here, Mark, and I'm going to let you take it away, and I've got your presentation here so I can...
You're going to go next slide.
I'm going to go next
No,
slide?
not yet.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, I actually had some UNH students helping me do it. They had a natural resource internship type project program they had to do. And like with many students, some were, a few of them were really good, and other ones I had to, double check and redo a lot of it. But we were using 1998 black and white aerial photography. So you can imagine it's a little different now. And so the most important reason to do it is to have accurate maps, because you can protect a resource much better if you know exactly where it is, and you get a lot more respect from the public when you don't have inaccuracies. I haven't found, as I have doing other towns, where like a building is in the prime wetland or things like that. You have had quite a bit of development in this town, in that, and there's some dense development next to important wetlands. So what I'm going to do is sort of I don't have a ton of slides, but I'm briefly going to take you through the scope of my work, how I do it, what the goals are in doing it, and then show you some of the differences. Okay?
Okay, we're ready for the
next slide. Okay, so the crazy thing is, and this is something that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but granite and the most up-to-date aerial photos, their still standard is 2015. But I'm going to compare it to other newer photography in areas where I need to. So I can go on Google. I like their 2018 April photography. But some of the original ones that we prepared were the latest, which is, I think, more like October 2023 or something like that. But anyway, the LiDAR is what we depend on more, and I'll show you why. There's 17 wetlands totaling 886 acres, and that's going to change when we do this mapping.
Hey,
It's probably going to go up a little bit.
Mark, can I ask you a quick question? So if we go on Google and go to maps and we look at the aerial photography on that, what is that standard? Is that dated
There's a whole bunch
photography?
of dates. You can go back to the 98 and then you can work your way through, and there's all kinds, but there's also leaf on, which is not useful for what we're doing.
Yeah,
Now, you're talking about Google Earth, and you asked about Google Maps.
Oh,
yeah,
I was using Google Earth Pro.
yeah.
But the issue is, they keep saying they're going to do a flight, and it's a federal project, and it's been, they said that they'd have it several years ago. So, anyway, rumor has it that they may have done 2022, and that's the stuff we're going to get whenever.
Are you going to say a little bit about what LiDAR is? Because some people.
Yeah,
may
I'm going
already-
to show you.
Perfect.
Prepare preliminary boundary changes on the LiDAR map. Before I even go out there, I look and say, hey, this clearly looks like it needs to be edited, because I've done thousands of wetlands doing this. Even though it's 2019, I've been doing a lot of wetlands. And then I conduct the field surveys. The field surveys are really contingent on what I can access. It has to be public access locations. I also use the conservation maps from the Fish and Game on the USGS maps, but not all easements have public access. So I may do a little follow-up with your chair, who seems to know a lot about all these conservation things in town, and verify things. So where I can get closer than being on the side of the road, I'm going and hiking around, which I've already done, on ones that I know are public access. Next. Then I prepare a report with all the changes and the new sizes. We say, here's what the wetland was, and here's what the wetland is now, with maps that show where all the changes are, and then new maps. I also sort of verify that the functions are still there, that nothing's happened around the wetland to degrade it such that a particular function was not, has dramatically changed. Now remember that back then they didn't have, our ecological integrity wasn't done as much. So I am going to, that's one of the things I'm going to talk about, because ecological integrity is the landscape position of the wetlands. Is it in a natural environment, which even though this town has, a fair amount of development, there's places on the Piscassic River where it's just beautiful. You don't see any houses or whatever. And so I'm going to do a little discussion about that in my, to sort of give a picture of how endangered is this wetland from the development around it, or how compromised is it. And then we're going to do a field workshop to sort of show you what we did out in the field, and then the prime wetlands have to be submitted to the state, to the DES. That means they have to be put on tax maps, and I'll coordinate with the Regional Planning Commission or whoever did that. So that isn't part of my contract now, although I will advise on those final steps. Next. So the goals are to use LiDAR to create more accurate maps. That's what we're doing, and the DES appreciates that. They would rather have more accurate maps. And so that's the key, the most accurate new information. And I've spent some time discussing with them the difference between an on-the-ground wetland delineation and a LiDAR town-wide mapping system, because they are not the same, and they never will be. You cannot get within 5 feet of a wetland boundary on an aerial photo or LiDAR. You can get a lot better than we have. We want to expand wetlands in areas where it's at the same elevation and it's the similar portion of the wetland, but it was missed because of the technology we were using. We are not expanding a wetland upstream into another finger that then goes there, because that's not part of the wetland that was originally mapped. It may be hydrologically connected to it, but it isn't the core prime wetland that was mapped. So that's not our job to create new, to double the size of a prime wetland or anything like that.
Can I just clarify a couple things on those couple points you made? So you're going out, and what we did before is you're mapping essentially the most significant wetlands.
Right.
There may be a prime wetland, but the wetland may actually extend beyond that. Would that be fair to say? So
You'll
would
see
you-
when I do these maps.
Okay.
It'll be way more clear.
Okay, I'll let you do that, and then I'll see if.
That's
Yeah.
why what I really want to show
Yep,
you.
okay, cool.
Okay, next. So this is the prime wetland map of the whole town. We did northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. There was at the time of doing the study a discussion about should we do the tidal wetlands? And then it was decided that the tidal wetlands already have a 100-foot buffer, so we're not going to try to designate them. Now, a couple towns have, and one of them is Hampton, and they designated all their tidal wetlands, and now you're permitting a project where a house that exists on these little lots on Hampton Beach that are right next to the salt marsh, and all they're doing is tearing down the house and putting it up on pilings to meet FEMA, and we have to get prime wetland waivers for that work, which is $500 extra. And the state, if I talk to Evan Lewis, he's like, it's already got the 100-foot buffer. So it was sort of, and even the town is wondering, should we undesignate? So I think you may have made the right decision in this case, because it's like double, it's protecting something that already has a 100-foot buffer. And the other thing to realize is, had we done it back then, the state voided all their prime wetland buffers to everything. In 2012, they voided all prime wetland buffers to prime wetlands that were designated before 2009 and after 2012. So all the people like you and the town of Exeter, which did the very first one, they just said, goodbye. So there is no state prime wetland buffer in your town. And you can't get it back. And you can't, if you do a new prime wetland study, you can't get 100-foot buffers on it.
We can put it in our own zoning.
You can put it in your own zoning.
It's just not a
and that's
statewide
what
protection.
I suggest to every town to do anyway. Okay?
Got it.
Next.
All right.
I just wanted to show you, this is the NWI map of the town. This is the new NWI map called NWI Plus, and each wetland is, even though they're all purple, there's lines. I'm going to zoom in and show you, there's lines. So each wetland has a classification that's newer, that's like 2020 or 2021, not the old stuff. So they still, the beavers can change things quickly in 3 or 4 years, but this is newer stuff, and it can be used by, I can use it to give you a basic idea of the plant communities, because I'm not doing, when I'm doing my field work, I'm not collecting all the plant communities, because we don't need to do that for the mapping. Okay, next. So this is what I'm talking about. So this is, right here is where you're, can I still be heard, or do I need
Yeah,
to be?
you're supposed to use that,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
But I don't take it off or anything. Okay, so this is where you're doing your new road thing, and this is classified as forested scrub shrub. These trees are already stressed by the beavers, but it's still forested, but those trees are dying. And then the next one is just forested, not shrub scrub. So you have to click on it, and this is all on the WPPT, which is right on the wetlands application. You can click, or you can go on their website. It's the Wetland Permit Planning Tool. And their maps are similar to granite, and you can get all the layers and all the parcels, the parcel database, everything. And it even has little icons where there were wetland permits. Okay? So, that's just gives you an idea of additional information that's available to you. Next. So this is where I'll start. This is Lady Slipper, and this is the island in the prime wetland, SE. I'd have to zoom in to remember it. SE1. No, SE1 is below. Here.
Southwest 2.
Oh, we're going to go to the next slide anyway. But you can see there's a farm field here. There's wetland. You can see they did a line here, but look at that different coloration. This is that stuff that has too many trees on it, in my opinion. So we're going to probably generate the final layer on a newer, as new as possible, leaf-off photography. So that's a GIS decision. Next, now we're going to look at the good stuff.
When you say leaf off, is it leaf, like petiole and leaf, or is it an acronym for something?
It means that they took the picture in April before
Oh,
all
okay.
the leaves came off.
Thank you.
But it doesn't do any good to take leaf off in the winter. If there's snow on the ground, you can't
Still
figure
can't see
out
it. Got
things
it.
as well. And the ideal time is when the wetlands have the most water in them. And then you have the best signature.
Gotcha.
The signature of dark is water.
Thank you.
Okay? So now we'll look at the good stuff. So here we are. And you can see here, you can see breaks in the landscape. So LiDAR is really, I don't know the actual science, but it's able to go penetrate through the vegetation to show. Although it can't penetrate through all vegetation. I've done work up in the further north in the balsam spruce areas, and that stuff is so thick it starts looking like geodetic plates because it can't get down through it. But you can see up the roads, all the houses, you can see islands, and you can see where the same elevation wasn't mapped. But that's all forested. And see how that has that sort of grainy look? Whereas over here it's smoother? That's forested versus marsh. Okay? Water shows up as perfectly flat. Even vernal pools can be found on this stuff. Because when it's water, it's flat. Okay? So, that's what it looked like before I marked it up. That's the original. And then we'll go see, next slide will show us what happens next. So all this blue is my new boundary. And you can see there may be wet meadow areas in this field that if I went out and did a wetland delineation, there may be old ditch systems or whatever, but it's not obvious. So we were mapping this wetland and we want something that's the same elevation. But we don't want to chase it all the way up into here because that's not part of this main wetland system.
Quickly, what little purple word out on
Yeah,
there and there, what do those mean?
that's saying that that's an upland.
Okay.
I thought I'd just point that out. Whereas here you can see, well, we're expanding. Here, there was an upland that was
You're
missed.
changing the whole configuration
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Because we don't want the upland. The upland can't be prime wetland. And same with this whole finger. There may be a pocket of wetland in there, but it's not part of this system.
That's
But
pretty-
again, we were dealing with aerial photos that were black and white and grainy and not as accurate. Okay? So
So Mark,
this is
is-
why LiDAR is like extremely helpful for this type of mapping.
So is this, you did this by foot? You took the old data and you went out, or is this
I can't walk
LiDAR
all the
data now?
boundaries because it's private property. But I went here and I verified that that is a forested wetland next to another forested wetland. You may get a few pines starting to come in here, but it's all the same wetland system.
Yeah.
So I looked here, I looked here, I looked here, and I have the experience of reviewing this development. And so that came into play in several projects where over the years I'd been there and actually either flagged it myself or reviewed when they did this development off the golf course, Chinburg did. I did the review of it for the town. Next slide. So you can see there's a lot of changes. In this case, it's growing here, shrinking there, but it's probably going to end up bigger. So this is standing on Ashwamp Road, taking a picture, and I can see here that this finger is cattails, and the original boundary was over here. But I wanted to show you this because there's probably a wet meadow little pocket here that may drain down a ditch, but that's not part of the larger marsh, shrub, forested complex that is this wetland. I also was able to see a little bit of it going a little further up.
Again, just to be clear, if someone, let's say the owner of this property wanted to develop it, they would have to do delineation, and that might be delineated as a wetland in the foreground.
This would be,
Right.
but
It's
it
just not
would be
part of the
prime
prime.
wetland.
It's not prime, right. It's just two
And
different
that's not
categories.
sort of the goal to, that's where you'd start be overstepping and say, oh, we're remapping, let's
Map
add, 5 or 6 more. You'd have to do another study to do that. Next. So this is this is the wetland that's south of that crossing that you're rebuilding. One of the things I want to do, and I didn't map this twice, so that we just looked at that other map, and that was included. But what you don't want to do is go closer to the road, because you don't want to. You want to make sure your wetland is at the toe of the slope of the road, because to do this permit, they're working in the roadway. But if your prime wetland boundary was too far, and I had problems with the state with this. I did a review of a project in Newington where I had done the prime wetland in 2003, and it was a development project. And so when we do this, when I did this back then, they would take my aerial photo map, and there were sheets, and they would scan it, and in that particular case, the exact wetland just showed that it was shifted, because when the company did the scanning, it didn't line up the same. Well, the DES is like, well, it's a different wetland boundary. And I was like, the wetland hasn't changed. It wasn't accurate. Now it's accurate. And I had to talk to I had to have a whole conference, a Zoom call with all these different staffs, including the higher ups, trying to teach them that it's accuracy of mapping. It's creating a more accurate map. It's not changing the wetland boundary, because their rules were basically saying, well, you have to have a public hearing and all this other stuff just to map it accurately. And so they changed their rules. I was up there in December, Rick Van Poel and I, and the head of the Barbara Richter, and we were there promoting, let's make this a simpler system just to do what we're doing now. So they changed the rules, and they're getting there.
So they don't have any statewide buffers for prime wetlands, but when you go for like a trails permit or some kind of permit, they do look at whether it's a prime wetland or not, and they're a
Yeah.
little more strict. Is that?
Because it's a priority resource
Right.
area.
Yeah.
So priority resource areas include 100-year floodplain wetlands, peatlands, but if you do an overlay and go onto WPPT, the prime wetland will go over everything else. But if you click off the prime wetland, you'll see that the prime wetland was a 100-year flood storage wetland and also a peatland, like Tuttle Swamp. Parts of Tuttle Swamp were peatland. And a lot of these peatlands are getting flooded by beaver. So you can see the changes here. That's out, it's higher ground here. But the stuff that's at the exact same wetland, from here to here, I expanded it. I didn't come up into the slope here, which may have some wetlands or pockets of whatever. I just want to map this wetland. So this made it smaller, this made it bigger. It's probably going to even out.
If you look at some of the mapping in like Granite, and you look at the streams, it actually shows the drainage going up that left side, but the elevation must be, I don't think it's up the other side, where you have the out areas.
Oh,
It goes up that way.
yeah.
Does that go up in elevation? Is that why that's?
I think this drains down, you can see this.
Yeah,
This drains down
down
here.
into there.
Yeah.
But that's not part of the,
And there's a
wetland.
stream system in here, but it's impounded. So there was a kingfisher right here in the stream, in where the little open water body was. All right, next, I took a quick picture. And so this is showing, I just want to show you, there's this old stone wall. We want the prime wetland boundary to be here. We don't want it to be here, and then when they're grading the road, they need to get prime wetland impact. Because priority resource or prime wetlands, you have to pay for every square foot that you impact. Up in Henniker, I did a pond, and there was 65 square feet of impact, and they had to pay a fee for every foot. So you can't, some of the mitigation versus impacts, all that, get complicated pretty easy. And if you have a big wetland impact, the mitigation costs now, if you impacted 10,000 square feet of wetland and paid into the mitigation fund, in this town, it would be $85,000, $90,000 to impact that much wetland.
of course, we're applying to that
Yeah.
grant program to.
Oh, yeah.
fix
Oh, I don't
this,
mind
so-
spending the money on conservation and
Well, but
restoration.
Yeah.
That's okay with me. Okay, next. So here we are looking at two other ones. This is the Piscassic River one. That's Hamel Drive, I think that's what it's called. And the Piscassic River, the river floodplains get a little harder because you have, floodplain, then channel, then islands. And you can see you have two crossings, one of SW3, and this is the Piscassic River, and one of SW4, and this is the entrance into Piscassic Greenway. So there's two crossing areas. You can see some changes in these boundaries too, here and there. This is Neal Mill Road. Down on the downside of this, it's really just a stream channel, and then it wides out to a wetland. So one thing that's very interesting is because you designated back in the day, you designated with the rules that were current at that time. Since then, the same time that they voided all the wetland buffers, there still are prime wetland buffers to towns that designated between 2009 and 2012. So like Brentwood has prime wetland buffers, and Fremont has, but I happen to have done those, but just in that window. But one of the things they did is they said anywhere where the prime wetland narrows to less than 50 feet, you have to disconnect it. But we don't have to. Because, so,
Because of why? Because we did it earlier?
because we did it, and we are not held to a new standard, because these were designated before that standard was put in place.
Okay.
And one of the consultants who I've run into and done a lot of review of his work was trying to say, when you remap it, you have to follow the new rules. But I got Marion Tilton at the state to verify that we are only held to the rules that were there. Okay? So, the next slide shows you, I wanted to talk about biological connection. So this is the one over, on the right going down into Piscassic Greenway, and this has a 15-foot wide crossing but it just has that little bridge. That little bridge sort of attracts some beaver activity, but there's plenty of wildlife movement. And this is different than if there were a culvert, constricting water, making animals go over it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I wanted to just check with these pinch points. So that's this one. You can take it to next slide. Next slide is looking upstream, and you can see where the beaver has impounded this, and it probably used to be forested. Now it's emergent, scrub shrub, and we're at low water now. And these are the kind of photographs I'm going to take of the wetlands. Just say, yes, we have deep, shallow marsh, scrub shrub, forested, that kind of stuff, by using the NWI and other things. And I also can see, is that accurate, or has something happened since the previous mapping? A lot has happened since the 2001 mapping. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is going to be much more
All right,
accurate.
next one is over on the other side. If you go down, what is this, Old Lee Road?
Yeah, this is our project. We're working on this
We
trail.
have a
so-
new beaver dam there too.
Yes.
All
Yeah,
right.
right up from the bridge.
Nice.
So this has a bridge, but what I'm interested in, go to the next slide, is
That.
Oh,
that. Because that's
Wow.
Yeah.
plenty of biological connectivity for everything. So for the state to pass a prime wetland regulation that says if it's less than 50 feet, then it's disconnected, that's baloney.
Yeah,
This is this going out on the, I hope.
yeah. It is on TV.
This is biologically connected. So I'm just, these are places that I can look and get an idea. But if you look downstream from this bridge, it looks like you're
Oh, it's beautiful.
in
Yeah.
the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, fantastic place.
It almost looks like you could kayak it, if you could find a place to go in. All right.
Next.
So that's, next slide. I just wanted to show where we were. So this is that access. That bridge we were talking about was right in
Yep.
here about, and the other one was over here. And this is what I'm using. The U.S. Fish and Game has USGS maps. There's a lot on them, and you have to take off all the hunting layers to see them, but they're really good at all the conservation easements, because you can see they got all the names and all that stuff. And so that's that, and then next, that's it.
That's it. Cool. Wow, that's great. So what's your progress so far? You've been...
I'm about a little over halfway through. And I was curious, can I bill as I go, or do you need to wait till the very
You
end?
can do it whenever,
All right.
yeah.
So I'll probably, since I'm halfway through, I'll probably do one bill and then do one more.
Yeah.
And what I might do is just send you a couple of easements where I want to know whether there's public access.
Sure. Yeah,
Back in the day, we wandered around all over the place. And now it's you just have to be super careful and respect everybody's property rights.
yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean I can't, if somebody's next to their house and I'm trying to look to see what the wetlands look, I can't ask them, and did I ask you for a letter that says I'm doing a study? Sometimes that comes in.
Yeah, did I
think you gave me one, yeah.
I think I did.
I
So-
would check out the back of Sharon Tucker's property if we can get back there, because you were saying you'd kayak down that, you're gonna hit another beaver
Oh, yeah.
dam right at her property that used to be a crossing to where they built the town well now. It's getting really flooded back there. It's, yeah.
The one thing I need to look at is any areas where there's actually a road across and a break with
Yeah.
just a culvert. I also have this one wetland that, if you go back, if you-
Matt, whoop, which
go
one?
forward, one more, oh,
Yep,
I'll go
Or the
ahead a
hill.
little more. I think it'll show up on this other one, to the first LiDAR.
oh, okay. That one?
Yeah, I have a break here, and I don't know why it's there. Now, I actually did the well work. These are those wells that the town put in.
That's the
Uh,
Piscassic River over there, right?
That's the Piscassic River. They did wells here, and then go ahead and go down. They also, go ahead down one more, again. They also did some, no, one more, keep going, right here. They also put wells in here.
Yeah, yeah,
We
that's the
came
one.
in from this, I used to buy
Yeah.
hay from this guy. We came in
Yeah,
from
that's
here.
Tucker.
That's Sharon Tucker.
Yeah.
There's a stone ford across
Mm-hmm.
there, and they had to put in all this wood to get across. But, for instance, there's there's areas of wetland along,
Yeah, that's what Julie was just saying, that's flooded by, that's the area you're talking about, right, Julie?
Yep.
That's flooded by
Yeah, right
beavers.
around
all
there,
brand new flooding.
No, since I moved 3 years ago, it's kind of been, but I guess that's still new.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in there.
I was
from-
out there a couple years ago
Yeah.
monitoring while they did
Yeah.
this because of turtles and things like that.
Yeah,
But this is where, you know, you could come all the way up into this field, but when you
yeah,
look at this system, we were mapping the river and its floodplain here.
yeah,
And yeah, maybe parts of that are floodplain, but it's way different than the rest of it.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's where you don't want to.
it's still wetland, it's just not a prime.
overreach.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can see I had to expand here.
Yeah,
And then when I was talking about what overexpanding is, you could follow this stream and then come up into this wetland.
Yeah.
But that's not part of what was designated.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to balance out.
The letter's neat because you can, that's a stone wall when you're looking at that field.
Right there.
Yeah, that's a stone wall, that's pretty
Oh.
cool.
It's amazing, this LiDAR. When it first came out, I was doing a study, a 3,000 acre arm study for the Fish and Game up in north of Newport, in Croydon or whatever. And it was all old sheep farms. And I could literally, they had all these like foundations, interior walls, exterior walls, and you could literally be walking through a break in the wall and know exactly where you were without a GPS unit or anything, just on the LiDAR.
Yeah.
Mark, I think that break up there on the isn't that where that tributary, SEO1, that's a tributary that flows into Piscassic? And would that be
Oh,
why
maybe
you
it's
have
a
break?
watershed break.
I think it's a tributary going into the Piscassic River.
Because when I went out there, I flagged and there was a wetland. It may be a watershed break, but it's a contiguous wetland.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't need to combine them or anything.
All
It
right.
just, I wasn't, that, and I think you're reminding me why we did it that way.
All right,
So I
Great.
wasn't crazy. Thank you very much. It's very
happy
helpful.
to help. All right, any more questions for Mark?
Oh, it's fascinating,
Great.
thank you.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Thank you, Mark.
I need to get this back to you. Right?
Actually, I have a question. This might be for Mark, I'm not sure, maybe someone else, but you mentioned vernal pools. Is there a map somewhere available that shows where the vernal pools are in town?
Not that I'm aware
No,
of.
they're-
I've only done one
charge, no
townwide, I've only done one townwide, it was a citywide for the city of Portsmouth vernal pool survey. And when you think of Portsmouth, it's pretty developed. So, I think we found like 25 or something. But I did that as an acoustic survey. So basically, you just go around and listen to where the wood frogs are. If you have access, you can see where there's salamander egg masses and all that. But we did it in the springtime, and it can be done, but the access becomes way more difficult. Because if you're not within earshot, and the property's, and there's, you're 1,000 feet away, you're not gonna know exactly where that pool is. A woman I worked with doing aerial photo years ago did write sort of a paper on how to do it using aerial photography, because she was an aerial photography expert, but you wouldn't believe what you can see on LiDAR, how well you can find it. I had a violation for the town of Pelham where the guy got a permit to cross and build a unit, and he decided to clear cut and bulldoze, and he ended up bulldozing 4 vernal pools. And he left one area like this big of one of the vernal pools. And I'm out there, and it is packed with salamander egg masses and everything. And the other ones that they graded over that left depression, there was all tadpoles, wood frog tadpoles. And it was difficult getting the DES to enforce it. It took quite a while. And finally, the town just did it themselves and enforced and made them do it. But you could, one of the vernal pools was on the NWI map. That's how big it was. So it's like, and the wetland scientist said he flagged several of them, but because there was no vegetation in it, he took the flags down. And there's no vegetation in vernal pool because it's got 3 feet of water. So his report actually confirmed, that they were vernal pools. So,
We have a lot of conserved land, so we could survey conserved land, which would be kind of interesting to know, because we don't really have a good survey of conserved
Yeah.
lands. And then if someone is going to do a development, though, they're going to have wetland delineation, and they're going to have to find out if there's vernal pools before they develop.
guess what? All the rules about, DES rules about verifying vernal pools and everything like that are tied to getting a wetland permit. So if you're not getting a wetland permit,
Oh,
but does the town, do you all have vernal pool protection in your regulations?
I guess we need to check.
Because you should.
I think we do.
Because the state only gets triggered when you have a wetland impact. It's like the natural heritage data search where we look for rare plants and animals. Only gets triggered by shoreline permit, wetland permit, or alteration of terrain permit. If you're not getting any of those, you don't even have to look. Okay?
Cool.
We good?
We are good.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Very
All
good.
right.
Appreciate it. All right, that's a question for Bart. See if we have vernal pool protection. All right, good. All right. If I can find my agenda. Sure. All right, approved meeting minutes. Let's see, we had 2 sets of minutes. Can I find them? April 11th, 2024. Anybody read them, have any edits? I read them, I didn't see anything. I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. All right, July 11th, 2024. I read these as well, I didn't see anything. Nobody else does, I'll make a motion to approve these minutes as written.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstained? You abstain? All right. Excellent. All right, financial summary. This is from August, so for Sue's benefit, who's watching us, I think, at home, the Conservation Fund has $138,484.79. The Shanda Fund has $4,621.11 for a total of $143,105.90. That doesn't include taking off, $13,000 to $14,000 that we've approved for the Mitchell project, which probably won't happen until, at the best, at the end of the year. possibly into next year. So just remember that that's going to come off of there. I've got a few funding issues, but we'll pick those up a little bit later in the meeting. I don't think there was anything else that was major from last month. The general fund balance is $5,188.64. As you know, we started a new general fund budget July 1st, so we're pretty early in that budget. Any questions on finances? All right, Town Council, Brian.
Yep. Let's see. Well, Town Council met on the 4th. Scott McGrath was nominated to the Energy Environment Committee. Let's see. Honestly, not too much. We filed a lot of. We put we have a bunch of lease payments for public works equipment that needed to be verified or approved by the town council. So payment 5 out of 11 for a dump truck. So that was most of our meeting. Honestly, nothing else too crazy. Yeah, that's about it, honestly.
Great. Any questions for Brian? All right, thank you. Let's see. Bart couldn't be here and Jeff couldn't be here, but I sent out a couple memos, so I'd like to chat about those. I'm going to put them up here. So I've been thinking about this for a very long time. These issues have been around, and they're not really issues. They're just we have two. Well, let's start with the Tuttle Swamp. We have the Tuttle Swamp Conservation Area, which is at the northwest end of town. It's near the junction of Ash Swamp Road and 152. It's basically a wetland property. There is a sign, and there's a little bit of a pull-off. There's not really much of a trail. So it's a pretty wild area. But there are 3 parcels that were conveyed to the town for conservation purposes, and they've always stayed as those 3 lots. And it just makes it easier if we can merge the lot lines and make it into one parcel, and that way there's only, one lot for this Tuttle Swamp Conservation Area. So there would be no other change except to merge those 3 lots. And to do that, the process would be if we agree, we can make a motion to that, and then it goes to the planning board for their approval.
I make a motion to dissolve those lines.
Okay, ready for
I
that?
would second that.
Okay, any other discussion? No? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Great. The other one is a little more interesting in some ways. So that's on the left, that's Leda Lane. So Leda Lane comes off of 108, north of the golf course. And let's see, back in, when was it, 1984, it was obviously going to be I don't know if it was part of the other part of Leda Lane subdivision, but it was going to be a subdivision continuing another road in there with all those other little lots. And as part of that, the bigger piece was given to the town for conservation. As you can see, it's one of our prime wetlands that Mark just showed us, although I think he's taken out some of those fingers, but it's still a wetland. And then all those other lots were conveyed, as you saw in the memo, by tax collector deed. So essentially, I guess it was basically forfeited because one, the road was going to go right through a wetland. I think it couldn't be developed, and it was back in the 70s and 80s when there was lots of interest in developing, and sometimes it didn't work. And these actually came to the town in 1999. So my recommendation, and those lots sort of at the north, if you will, the north, closer to Leda Lane, they look like they're dry, but it just really drops off. There's not even a flat ground there. And so what I recommend is that we dissolve all those lot lines, make it into one big parcel. That would get rid of the road, which is still on paper record, which doesn't exist. So we would get rid of, I think it's Pembroke Drive. So that would go away. And I think we still have to keep, lots 9 and 10 are on the other side of the road. So I think we can't merge. I don't think you can cross roads.
Yeah.
Right? So we'd actually have to create 2 lots. So we'd create one of lots 9 and 10, and we'd create a lot with all the rest, including the big parcel. And I think it's good. Bart and I walked the property down into the wetland. There's this, where you see the circle in the middle that's actually upland. And so there might be an opportunity to create a trail with some boardwalk, into that area, and it would serve an area of town that really doesn't have much, if any, public conservation. It would be a short trail, but I think it would serve potentially an underserved area of town, so,
What do you think short would be? Couple hundred yards?
yeah, it could be a little more than that. You can actually go in and you can actually go up into that little area. There's not really anything it's not like, there's no view, but again, it would just give somebody some open space to do a little trail. Maybe, twice as long as your Boulder Drive, that kind of thing, but it would be like a loop.
Right.
And where Leda Lane comes and then it turns, that's Brandon Drive, that is actually there, so that road is there, and you can just pull off, like, you don't need a parking or anything, you can actually just park right along that side, and I would assume a lot of the people that might use such a trail would live right there, and they would just walk from
Right.
some of those other places, so,
It's a great idea.
yeah, so. Yeah, so that's the proposal to merge all those, and so this is sort of a two-part, I think, is to merge those two sets of lots, and then actually create the Leda Lane Conservation Area, because we've never done anything with this, we've never talked about it as kind of a conservation area, but it was, the bigger lot was for conservation, and then these rest of these lots are really not developable, so if you go in the tax map, these are all listed, and it's, it doesn't make any
silliness.
sense. Yeah, and we can make it as a conservation area, so.
So I have a question. Is the people, like, for me, the Boulder crew is very supportive of that trail through there. So is there a reason to touch base with the people who are adjacent to that to
Yeah, so I
get
think,
some opinion on that?
yeah, so I think there's two parts. One is to just create the conservation area. We don't even have to do a trail. And then the
Right.
next part would be, do we have the bandwidth and we have the interest to pursue putting a trail? I don't think we're saying that the trail is part of this. It's just a potential idea.
Yeah, got
That
it.
might work there, but I think you'd have to, reach out to everybody there to see if they would like that or not.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. I mean, people may really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So, yeah, the first proposal here is just to do the mergers and call it the Leda Lane Conservation Area.
Well, I would make a motion to do that merger to create the Leda Conservation.
That's fine.
Leda Lane.
Whatever the memo
Conservation
says.
Area.
Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. That'll be nice. So I will pass that on to Bart, and he will take that forward. Brian, I don't know if you want to bring the, I don't know if it would go to the planning board first and then come to the
Yeah, it would
council's-
go to the planning board first.
Yeah, and then probably the council in terms of maybe I don't know if you formally would approve us calling that whole thing the Leda Lane Conservation Area.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that would just fall under the planning board itself, but but definitely them first.
Yeah, that's the one. Great. Excellent. All right. Does anybody else have any planning board stuff? Yeah. Okay. Riverfront Advisory. Sam is still our rep. We did appoint him this year, so I've talked to Bart. There are no other positions right now, so I know there might have been some interest in one of us or somebody here being formally appointed. So we have to sort of sort that out, because Sam is chair of that committee and is pretty invested in that, so I'd like to sort of stay with that for now. But it doesn't mean that people can't attend and participate in that Riverfront Advisory. If anybody is particularly interested, you're more than welcome to go to their meetings and participate. They meet Monday afternoons, I think like at 4:30. I can't remember which day of the month, but you can check with Bart if interested in that.
What exactly is their kind of like scope for?
It's a good question. They're really looking at the riverfront. They were looking at improve the riverfront. We have some town parks. We have Shanda Park, and there's some other public spaces and a walkway, and trying to think about living shoreline, like how to fix the shoreline for sea level rise and erosion, and also just this, what do people want? We have a mix of stuff down there. But I don't really know the full scope, so that would be good.
Like, do you think it's specific to like downtown?
Yes,
Bass
it's
River,
a
right?
downtown
It's not
riverfront.
like the whole
Right.
length.
specifically the downtown riverfront, my understanding, right? We do have Jerry Collins, who comes to us every year. He owns the Chicks Weir that gets put out in the river, and then he brings it back in and puts the weir itself on part of Shanda Park around the corner. And we typically give him permission to do that.
I move to give him permission.
Okay, thank you.
Are there dates?
Yes, so he, October 2024 to June 2025. All right, do I have a second?
That's it.
Okay, second. Any discussion? People who aren't familiar with it, it's,
So I think I helped him put that in one year, quite a few years ago, and I think I remember him telling me that he has to do that every year to be able to continue to do it. Is that the case? And
Yeah.
I don't know who controls that and why they would say you can't do it if he doesn't do it in
I
a
mean, if he doesn't
particular
put it
year.
out, if he doesn't put it out?
If he doesn't put it out, yeah, he would lose his rights. Do you remember something about that?
That sounds vaguely familiar, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a grandfathered thing.
So
and
like you
it's-
can keep doing it, but if you ever stop doing it, it's
Yeah,
over.
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Right.
that's right, yeah. Plus, I think the fishery's been closed, so it's sort of an historic artifact.
He's
so-
not actually harvesting
No,
fish.
yeah, no, because it's closed, so, okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Great, we'll be happy about that, I'll let him know. Okay, energy environment, Julie.
Yeah, we're going through the master planning stuff still, and as you all might know, there's another meeting Saturday to discuss further, like they did back, I don't remember when that first one was, but they're doing another one to get town input. Waste management came up again, which is something we've been talking about and isn't in the master plan yet, so that's something the Energy and Environment Committee wants to help advise on the master plan, how Newmarket should handle their waste and recycling and composting into the future. We heard from Lindsay about solar power that will be getting put in to do all the town's water facilities. So that's kind of cool. We'll generate enough power to operate all our water facilities. Update from CPCNH, the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. They're just heard that they're still figuring out net metering. So that was, I know, came up when I first was on the appointed to this little advisory committee, because Eversource still owns the lines, but then we're supplying the power. It's tricky to figure out who gets the net metering and how that'll get figured out. So they are still investigating that
Can I
piece
ask
of it.
about that?
Yeah.
Did they announce to the town in any way that they were making the rounds? Because
For
last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a random person just knocking on doors and almost bullying people.
was it CPCNH or Eversource?
No, it was CPCNH.
Oh, I didn't hear anything about it. No.
Somebody came to my door that I wasn't expecting. I hadn't seen or heard anything that they were going to be in town. It was turned into maybe a not so pleasant conversation, and then the next day, somebody else posted on Facebook that they'd had the same
It happened to them too,
experience.
yeah.
I hadn't posted it or gone public with
Yeah.
it, but I just thought, oh my God.
you're
not
that's-
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I did, on top of that, it just seems like there's not enough outreach from them in general. I was just trying to find out how to upgrade to cleaner energy, because if you look at the rates right now, you can, for the same rate as Eversource, actually be at 50% renewable energy, you can, or you can stay at the base level, but to even just figure out how to upgrade your plan is difficult. So I think that goes along with it, outreaching when they're gonna be in town and doing things like that. I think that's really great feedback I can bring back to Joe, and he can push on to them, so
Yeah,
thank you
that'd be
for
great.
sharing that. Yeah, I think that kind of summarized the Energy Environment Committee. One of the biggest things I'll keep updated on is the waste management, because I think that's really important, and what we're doing on that, yeah.
Great, glad you're working on that.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Julie? Thank you. School liaison, Emma couldn't be here tonight, so we'll move on. All right, easement monitoring assignments, and going to talk about CELT contract. Tom, you're on.
Oh,
You want to say
yeah,
where
I'm
we
sorry.
are?
Yes, we really only have two to pass out tonight. One goes to David Bell. And I've given, and that's for the Smith sisters. And then I gave Julie hers and Jeff's monitoring packet for the Bald Hill property. Now, Ellen's already got her stuff for the Schneer and Silverman tracks. Now the Wigan Farm tract and the Dearborn tract is monitored by NHCSL, is it Conservation and Steward?
The state, yeah.
And Steve Walker, and they've been notified to please let us know when they are in town to monitor. The CELT contract is for the Hilton and Nostrum, and that's what we pay them to monitor for the town. But CELT is also monitoring Gaziano, and they're willing to monitor Piscasset and Roselle, because those projects, LCHIP pays for the monitoring, so they'll just pay, if I'm not mistaken, they'll just pay CELT directly.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
we,
in perpetuity?
so, well, they've been paying, part of their LCHIP money is to go to pay for the actual, because the way, so LCHIP holds they hold an well, they don't call it an easement, they call it, whatever they call it's basically an easement. The
Yeah, a lot of
LCHIP,
enforcement.
yeah, so when they give money to a project, they have an ownership in easement. And typically, when you do that, you monitor the property. What LCHIP doesn't monitor any of the properties, they farm it out to either the landowner themselves, like the land trust monitors their own easements, and we always monitor our own, which is the Piscasset River Moselle. And we get $500 to $600 a year to do that. Sam has been doing it for many years now, but it's not great to monitor your own property, and so because we get that money from LCHIP, my thought was, well, maybe we should just have CELT add that on to their other two easements, because it wouldn't be any more cost to us, essentially, because the money would be, matter of fact, it wouldn't cost that much for CELT to do the monitoring, so we'd actually get a little bit ourselves. So that was my thought, is if you think that makes sense, and I did talk to CELT, and they have time to add that on to their schedule. Partly, it's what I find useful to have another entity is if you do have a problem with an abutter, it's really hard for us as town volunteers to deal with that sometimes. And so if you have a third party doing the monitoring and the reporting, and then you say, well, this is what our partner found, and you take that. So if you think that makes sense, I don't think we have to redo the contract with CELT. We can just add this and say we're going to use the funds that we get from LCHIP to pay for
I
the
mean, it
monitoring.
sort of kind of happens,
Yeah.
with Gaziano, didn't it? I mean, LCHIP seems like they want to give CELT the money.
Yeah, we thought we were supposed to monitor it, and it turned out.
But anyway,
Whatever,
Steve
that's-
said Catherine will probably be down to do their,
The
the
state,
Wigan Farm
okay.
and Dearborn.
So,
I mean, Charlotte, that's right, Charlotte. Yeah.
so if we want CELT to do Piscasset River Moselle, we should make a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we do that.
Okay.
Absolutely, I think
Okay,
it's a
great.
great idea.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great.
So
Tom,
I guess I'll catch David later.
yeah, to see what, hopefully he can do that again this year.
How does CELT decide what they need to do that? Is it something that, they give us a price out of the amount of hours it would take
Yeah,
for
they
a
have a
staff
pretty good,
person?
figure out how many hours it takes, and sometimes the first year takes a few more hours because they got to sort through the stuff, and then they charge
Yep.
for the mileage. They want they just need the conservation easement deed, the survey, and past monitoring reports typically. It's a pretty, Piscasset River Moselle is pretty straightforward. I
Yeah,
would say Nostrum is much
absolutely.
more complicated, Hilton's a little bit more complicated, but
Yeah.
Piscasset River Moselle
Isn't
is.
LCHIP just a flat rate? Is it?
No, the money that LCHIP gives, you mean the money that LCHIP gives to the town?
No, I was thinking
How
what
much
CELT
CELT
would
would-
yeah, yeah.
require to do it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an hourly rate, and then, then they write the report.
Yeah.
Great. Excellent. I think it's going to be good. All right, thanks, Tom. Appreciate that, and everybody doing
Absolutely.
their monitoring. Okay, we got a few projects. Do another slide. Okay, Heron Point Sanctuary. I think we've talked about this before. We have, if you look at this map, this is the sanctuary, and the Meadow Drive or the Heron Point Estates community are the houses there, and then the purple, if you can see purple, sort of outlines their boundary with the Heron Point Sanctuary boundary. We've had several discussions with them about hazard trees that are right on the boundary, and we got a quote from John Roy Tree Service, for $2,800 to remove some of these hazard trees. Heron Point Estates, the community there is going to pay for $800 worth, because those were definitely on their property. And the town, I've talked to DPW and the town, and they're going to pick up the tab for taking the trees down that are, they're on the boundary, and it's the boundary, and that's why we're going to talk about the boundary survey, because it's a little unclear. The trees are sort of leaning from our side onto their side, and so we just feel like the town should pay for those trees to come down. You know, they're good partners with us. They provide actually access through Meadow Drive, which is actually a private road, and so we want to be good, you know, good partners with them, and they've always been a good partner with Heron Point Sanctuary. So we don't need to do anything about that. I just wanted to give you an update on that tree work, and it's whenever John can get out there and schedule that work. So the second part is the boundary survey, because when we've had these conversations with the community there, there never really was a very good survey for the Heron Point Sanctuary. It was going to be a big subdivision, as you may remember, 30 houses or something, and so the survey is of that, the plat where all the parcels were, and there never was, the town, we never did a survey once the town got the Heron Point Sanctuary. So the boundary is slightly unclear around this community, and I talked to Judy, who's the president of the Heron Point Estates, and we agreed that it would be beneficial for all of us to have a boundary survey of that. We don't really need the whole property surveyed, but you know, where we have that shared boundary.
Yeah.
And I talked to Bard, and we feel that, again, the town, or probably, we will probably have to fund this if we decide to go ahead, that we should pay for that boundary survey and not ask the community, the estate, Heron Point Estates. And so, so I got 3 proposals, and they actually happen to be 3 surveying companies from Newmarket, which I think is very cool. We have 3 surveying companies in Newmarket. One is Doucette Survey, one is Boudreaux Land Surveying, and one is Stake and Stones Land Surveying. And there are 3 different prices, so I don't know if folks have had a chance to review these. Essentially what they all pretty much, I think, are saying the same thing, is that, you know, you do title research and deed research, figure out, you know, what the deeds do say, and then you basically go out there and look for existing monuments and start doing the survey. And then you create a plat for recording, and you also set monuments once it's all agreed that, yeah, this is where the boundaries are, and they'll set monuments at all the corners. And then they could maybe flag some of the straight lines, and so we know where the boundaries are. So surveys are notoriously very expensive, as you can see from these proposals. So I think we should do it. The northwest boundary, you see where the yellow, that's the road, that's the entrance road into Heron Point. If you go north, there's a big parcel, that's John Steers and Mary Steers, their property. And he actually just had a boundary survey done. So those boundaries presumably are quite clear, and so we don't need that. The rest of the boundary is Lamprey River, and then there's another property, as you can see in the southeast corner. We don't really have any issues over there, so I don't think we need to survey that. Doucette included that because I wasn't sure at the time, but I don't think we need to add that piece in. And so the other 2 surveyors, I didn't include that. I just included the purple boundary that you see there. So questions, thoughts?
So is part of our sanctuary to the right of all the purple?
Yeah, it goes, there's a a little squirrely little connection there that it goes over, and it's pretty, it's kind of wet over there, scrubby, a lot of invasive plants, and it's not a lot goes on over there.
See the section that goes down, so in the top right, there's a white building. And then next to it, the purple goes in the opposite direction, it goes to the left.
Yeah.
That's almost like a trail
Yeah,
that kind of goes, that's the access road that goes back in there.
and it crosses a private driveway that goes to that house down by the river there. As you did see from Doucette's survey, it would be a lot to add that onto the survey, and you could actually we could do it at a later time. You don't have to, I don't think there's probably no cost savings of doing it at the same time necessarily,
Yeah.
so.
Our big issue is with the butters.
Yeah, it's with
And
those, really all those
confusion.
houses there, and there's definitely some uncertainty among the folks that live there where the boundary is, and so it just, we don't want to, we're not doing it to create a problem, we just want to, do it as a factual thing, and then talk with them about, what do we want to do if there's some issue of encroachments or whatnot. Yeah.
So Steer has shared his
No,
survey?
No, I have not seen his, I did ask for it, but I have not seen it yet, so I don't know if it's final.
Do we know who did it?
Yeah, it was Peter Landry. I did contact him to give a proposal, and he did not get back to me with a proposal.
So it wasn't registered, it wasn't
Not yet.
recorded?
Not yet. It basically just got done, I think,
Okay.
like in
It
the
will
last
be.
couple months, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure the surveyors, one of these surveyors can contact him and get the information.
Is there any more discussion with John about,
Access or anything?
Access.
Yeah, no. Not really.
so I did read quickly through the three proposals. Can you refresh my memory? I remember financially there was quite a bit of difference between,
Yeah, they
The
seem
three.
to me like the work seems identical in terms of what they're all proposing, is what I read. So Doucette survey is obviously at the high end, and then Steak and Stones is at the lower end, and the other one's closer to the lower end. Steak and Stones was recommended to me by Dwayne Hyde at CELT. I'm somewhat familiar with Boudreaux Land Surveying, and of course we know Doucette. I think they're all very good, highly qualified.
I had my property done by Boudreaux.
Boudreaux, yeah, no, they're all highly qualified firms. So my thought is this would probably have to come out of the Conservation Fund, which, we have funds to do this sort of thing.
I assume Doucette's was so high because they didn't actually want to do it.
They do a lot of big projects,
That's what I mean.
they're,
Yeah.
yeah,
they
They're
don't
just-
need it?
yeah, they're expensive, yeah, this is
They're
a
not
small
hungry,
project for
they're
them,
not really-
so, yeah.
Well, could it also be attributed, or what was the wording? Because you had said that you had, one of the three, I guess it was Doucette, had a different scope of work, and then you took out something.
No, but this.
That was post the discussion of taking that thing
No,
out.
that's like more money, the extra little
Oh,
piece.
on top of
Yeah, they
this,
had-
okay,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
confused about that, okay.
Yeah, so, no, it's, yeah, theirs is pretty high. I mean, I think it's safe to say, and they would not, they would be fine if it's say like, okay, that's too much, we can't, this is a small project. So, yeah, my opinion is between Boudreaux and Steak and Stones.
What was the difference between the two?
Steak and Stones is $4,200 and Boudreaux is $6,950.
And I'm sorry, did you say 4,200?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Independent of the price differential, I was intrigued by Dwayne having recommended one of them.
Yeah, I did ask him who he had, because I thought we wanted three. His proposal looked quite adequate to me.
There's this understanding of the niche of what they're being asked to do, if they're familiar with CELT, and Dwayne recommended them.
Right. Yeah. I think the only, yeah, I mean, I thought they were proposing pretty much the exact same things, and so my thought would go with Steak and Stones, but
I moved to go with
Steak and
Stones.
Stones.
Yeah, I mean, the
Sense of
best price.
stewardship
I would
there.
second that.
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
No, I think that's good.
And we have to say if it's coming from the Conservation Fund. It
is-
From the-
Has to-
the-
it
is. From
the
our conservation
motion?
fund, yeah, that'd be part of the
Yes, I
motion.
move that we use our conservation funds for Stake and Stone to do the Heron Point Sanctuaries survey.
All right, that was a
Second.
okay.
Was there a timeline included with that?
They were all, these two were ready to go, and I did say, we had to discuss it tonight, and so that'd be fine,
Great.
they'll just put it out, whatever they need to get done. I think it's a good time of year to do surveys.
Perfect.
Great, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Awesome. Gosh, we're getting a lot done, this is great. And I'll let the other two know that we opted for another.
Thank you.
And I
for
know
that.
Brian, Steve, I think, has to sign these contracts. And I think this is below, we did get 3 bids, so I think we're fine, but I think Steve still has to sign the contract. Do you know?
I believe so, since
Yeah.
he's the executive head of the town, yeah, so.
I think he signs it, okay, great. Okay, go to the next slide. Piscataqua River Loisel, we've chatted about this before. This split rail fence we have keeps breaking, the rails keep breaking, and these are actually hardwood, just regular hardwood rails. And so I met with Tom Loisel, who's the abutter, with the family property actually. And he suggested you can get pressure-treated rails, the exact same rails that are pressure-treated, and I didn't realize they made those. And so they would be a lot more durable to replace, and we need 10. So my thought is that we get 10 pressure-treated rails. They look they look the same as these, and fix that. So that's part.
Posts as well, or just?
I
the
think all the
rails?
posts are fine. I think we just need the rails. So we're just going to replace the ones that are broken. There's 10 that need to be replaced. What happens is they're so thin at the ends, and the
Right.
hardwoods, they just rot so quickly, and I think the PT will be much more durable.
Yeah.
And then, so Tom, again, who lives next door, has been doing the mowing of the parking area and the
Which
trail.
property is that? Is that going
This is
in on the left?
No, from downtown 152, past Grant Road, you go over the Piscataqua River, and it's the one we made the new big sign.
Right, but I mean, which
Which
property?
abutter?
Who
Oh,
is
he's to
the,
the, sorry, he's to the right.
to the right
The family
side?
house was to the right, yeah,
Okay.
sorry, the big white house, yeah.
Yep, got
Yeah, so we conserved this property with the family. So he's been doing the mowing, and he mows the trail. And I had thought last year that we had talked to DPW that they were going to pick up the mowing, but they haven't. They're, busy and short-staffed in the summer. So I talked to them again, and they said they would add it to their rotation, but they may only get there once a month. So I told Tom that, and I said, well, I think we can talk to them again next year, because it really depends on what kind of seasonal help they can hire, and it's really hard to find seasonal help. So Tom was very appreciative that, we make an
Trying
attempt.
like that, yeah.
And so we'll see. He may still do some, but we'll try to get DPW to pick up, maybe if they could do it every 2 weeks, which is I think what they do at Wigan, and they do Wigan, and they do, yeah, they do Shopmire. No, neighbor does Shopmire, but they do some mowing out, like at Riverbend, we have a couple parks and things like that. But, I think it would be nice if they could pick this one up. So
Yeah, they might be able to talk with you at some point, or somebody at some point, and take something off such a frequent rotation and put this into a more
Yeah.
frequent rotation.
Right, yeah. I don't think it would take too long. It's not that big of an area. So back to the rails. The rails are about 1567 a piece. We need 10, that's $156.70, but maybe we should say up to $200 if you're willing. I'll order those and have them delivered, and just stick them in. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like that's.
Good
Sounds like a
plan.
All right,
And I would move for.
all right. So that's a motion for up to $200 toward buying
Bless you.
pressure-treated split
I
rail
would
fence
second for if there was a motion.
out of the conservation fund. Was
So
that a
moved.
second? Was that a second by Chris?
Yeah.
Chris, okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Good, we'll get that done. Let's see. Just wanted to, because I got a request from Suzanne at LRAC for an update on our Old Lee Trail project. You saw that picture by Mark West, so that's the DPW put the new rail in. So that was our safety feature that we wanted to get done, so that was great, they did that. This is the sign on the left that we're going to post right before the bridge, that's part of our grant. This is like an 18 by 12 sign, I think. So I'm going to try to get that up tomorrow or next week. So that's nice. And then just waiting for Greg DeSanto, who's going to do the trail work. So he's going to, again, put these rock dips on either side where there's some erosion and recrown the road. So that's that project, and that's all funded by LRAC.
Right.
Oops, I don't have anything else yet. So then,
Should the photo have photo credit by Duda?
huh?
Should the photo, I like it when photos say photo credit by so-and-so.
I think it does have my name.
Is
in it.
that down there?
Yeah.
I can't see it.
Nice
from here.
small letters, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank
You don't want a floodlight on that or
No,
anything?
no,
Okay,
that's
gee.
That's good. So the Wigan Farm is our other project, you remember the boardwalk replacement. So Mark is working on that permit. He's just been really busy, as you know, he's doing lots of things. So he submitted some information to Natural Heritage Bureau, they sent some stuff back, and he's got to prepare this submittal to DES. And as you may indicate, its trail permits are getting more complicated, but he still thinks it's what they call a notification, because essentially it's a replacement. We are extending it a little bit more, but not in the river stream. It's a very narrow, it's very intermittent
Yeah.
water course. So he thinks we're going to put our piers not right in the stream so we can span. And so he still thinks it's a notification, but it's just taking him time to get it all together and get it submitted. And once
It's
he
a
submits it,
good fall project.
yeah, once he submits it, it's just they notify you that, they've approved it, and then we can do the work this fall. You never know with DES, they may say no, because there's landing turtles in that region, and they may say, no, you have to do a more complicated permit, but we're hoping not.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And that's all, again, funded by LRAC and another grant that we got.
Hopefully not, since there's already a structure there.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the other good thing is, I think he confirmed that DES requires now, when you do these kind of things, that they have to be 2 feet above the wetland for turtles to cross and, lighting and so forth. But, and we delineated the wetland, so it's like 60 or 70 feet. But because the stream channel is only like this, the ramps can be in the wetland. So you don't have to be 2 feet the
All the
entire
way
wetland and then
across.
have the ramps, because that would be like,
Oh, yeah.
be way too big. So we can ramp it when we're still within that wetland. So
Great.
that's good. Okay, that's that. Ash Swamp Road, you saw pictures of that again. So the state submitted their grant, and they're waiting to hear. That's that big national Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant. Lindsay Butler, our town engineer, is submitting another one to ARM. You heard Mark mention ARM, which is another New Hampshire grant program. That's due on Sunday, so she's almost got that ready to go.
Who's submitting that?
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
So I was helping her with the grant, so she's got that pretty well set to go. And there's another grant from the Nature Conservancy that's willing to give some money up front to do some of the work. So fingers crossed. I think it's a great project. I can't imagine that they won't fund it, so
Yeah.
I hope they do. So that's good. So, but we probably won't know for 2 or 3 months. I don't know when to decide. Mitchell Land Conservation Project, Dwayne has submitted all the grants for that, and so he's just waiting to hear again, and that'll be probably again sometime this fall to know if Selk got the grants for that project, and then we can go forward. That's that. Okay. Education outreach events. Chris, Turtle Fest 2025.
Yeah, say it with such emphasis,
Woo!
it's a thing, yeah.
We're excited.
I handed out this document, which looks lengthy at first, but I left big spaces so that hopefully tonight we can start filling in some names, or some people can say, oh, I can do that, or I'll take that piece. Do you have one?
I don't.
Okay,
Is there one?
there's one on by Ellen's left somehow, up there. Sorry, there you go. Okay, thank you. I thought if I gave a quick anecdotal addition to these sentences, it might help people say like, oh, I think I like that. That's in my wheelhouse. That's something I'm interested in. Or let me think about that. Or somebody here is going to say, oh, you got to add thus and such. Okay, so we can just start at the top and go through it. It's Saturday, May 10th. Right now, we do have the town hall, the auditorium and space reserved. So the question has come up about parking, so I have to make sure I ask Wendy if parking is included in the reservation of the town hall. And you saw on election day that people do park on the street and the lot in back of the town hall. So that seems right now to be our working plan, is to have that be in here. That day, we would need somebody to be, for instance, at the welcome desk as people come in, to be able to say, oh, hi, yes, here's a flyer, here's an information sheet, here's a map to where the hike is going to be in the afternoon, whatever it is. So we do need that. We need somebody to help to say that, yeah, I'll hang back and help clean up the auditorium. I've got to ask Wendy, when does that have to be done by? I don't know if it needs to be done Saturday, or if it's the kind of thing that do we come back the next day? Do we come in Monday morning? What's the time that has to be done by? Was that just your hand that you're interested in cleaning up, or was that a
Yeah,
question you
sure.
were going to ask? Okay, say it out loud then, so we can fill in.
I can clean up stuff. I've done that.
You can clean up stuff, okay. Sounds a little Clint Eastwoody, but okay. So go ahead and write down Tom's name for cleanup. Ensuring that attendees have accurate information and directions to off-site events. That I meant to be some sort of a troubleshooter person that can maybe have a Conservation Commission vest or something on, and if they heard someone say like, oh, I do want the talk this afternoon, or the walk this afternoon, but I'm not sure where the rail station is. Oh, you intercede, you say, oh, it's here, there, doo-dah, blah, blah, here's a handout, here's a flyer about that. So somebody to be we'll call it a circulator specialist. Concierge, that's a lovely name for it. Was that you saying yes, you'd do that? Okay.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Melissa is a concierge.
Concierge.
Ooh. Concierge Chapelet, okay.
May we?
Help set up concessions as needed. So we're hoping that this is a really viable job, because we're hoping to have somebody or some group saying, we've got coffee, we'll have donuts, we have baked goods, we have yada yada. Oh gosh, we don't have where's an outlet, where's this, where's that? With our knowledge of the property or properties, somebody would be able to say, oh, I'd be your go-to. Somebody could be the go-to for helping interface with concessions or food or whatever those people need.
Sign me up.
All right, you just want to get the first dibs at the coolest
Exactly.
looking piece of
The
coffee.
freshest donuts.
Smart.
All right, okay.
Is that you,
That
Colin?
was
Yep.
Colin, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. Okay, somebody to go with Josh. We'll talk about Josh in a minute, but we do have a walk out at the wetlands, out at the wetlands, the rail trail, and back of the little train, kind of out on Ash Swamp across from Rockingham County. So there is going to be a wetlands walk there with a group of people that are able to hear from Josh Megacy about what's out there, what does it look like, and helping in the parking lot out there. So
I'll be on that one.
That'll
for
be
sure.
Ellen Snyder, thank you. Somebody to mill about and help put publicity out, putting flyers in area windows. Is that
Would
Zach?
that be something we do like before the event?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could
I'm
do.
just not sure I'm gonna be there. I have to check if I'm gonna be in town that weekend, so I might sign up for other things, but.
Oh,
I
doing
can
something
definitely do the
beforehand would be
flyers.
awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, so the classic bulletin boards and ask businesses, and,
Yeah.
and you can interface with the Newmarket Business Association maybe. And,
Okay.
and we're also hoping to have some sponsorship for printing. So you can help be the interface to see where are you even getting these flyers or things to hand out. Okay, we got that for Zach, right? Helping on-site t-shirt sales or help with inventory of t-shirts before the event. I'm picturing a stand, a booth, a table, something. So it's a matter of taking money, taking little square doodahs that we can probably get checks or.
Are these Turtle Fest t-shirts that you're having printed up?
There will be, we'll get to that in a moment, but
Okay.
there will be Turtle Fest 25 t-shirts
Okay.
brought to you by Newmarket Conservation
yeah.
Commission.
Oh,
And there'll be a little button you can push that light up like a
Yeah,
really
yeah, I
funny
was
Christmas
just gonna ask.
sweater. Okay.
Is that gonna be in here?
We'll talk
Wow.
about that at a later date. Would they be here? Would they be in advance? Is somebody gonna, by inventory, I was imagining somebody might say, oh, the library said they would take 10. Oh, okay, you know you've taken 10, given them to the library, how to get either the shirts or the money back from the library. I don't know yet about if it's only gonna be one place that sells them. It could also be perhaps through the rec department, which we haven't talked to them at all about that yet, but that's a place where people are in and out, and they have the capability of taking money and keeping money safely. So inventory and help selling T-shirts is somebody.
I can help with that.
Thank you.
And I'm also, it's all day, okay, 9 AM to noon is the, oh, no, that's the event. What is the timing on May 10th?
Well,
we
that's,
know?
we're going to do that in a minute, but
Okay.
roughly 9, what didn't we say, like 9 to 11:30, 9 to noon, something
Yeah, we
like
talked
that?
about doing a bird walk.
And the bird
so-
walk is before that.
Yeah, so we just want to be back
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I sign up to help with anything, if
Right.
I'm out on the bird walk, I want to make sure I'm
Right.
back to do.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll hold the house for you, Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Don't sell any T-shirts till I'm back.
No, oh, no, and we'll save a donut hole or something for you. Okay, thank you, that's wicked helpful, thank you. Do we have any other tasks associated with this that you feel, these are very housekeeping-y, very volunteer-y, very we're the core group for that. So if you come up with something else, get an email off to us so we know about that. Okay, I did mention that I got to check with Wendy to verify about parking. I can also see what might be, what the police might need to know about the cars being parked on the street, because there is a 2-hour time limit. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. And they also might like to know in advance there's going to be an event that day. As we did for the garden tour, there ended up not having to be any police detail. But several years ago, when we had a event at the rec center, they did have a policeman at the end realizing that there was going to be traffic potentially coming in and out of that street right by the police station. So they might say no biggie or thanks for the heads up. What technology might be needed to use screens and computer projection? Don't know. Lindsay might have slides to use. I don't know about the other people, but as this goes on, we'll learn that, and that would mean somebody would be the interface with Tim Crimmins and his videography and tech crew for this room for sound and stage sound and screen. Interface with the school district will fundamentally be Emma, but we don't have her here tonight to let us know who are the faculty members for Environmental Club, National Honor Society, Boosters Club, or the Kim Free Graduation Party. All of those groups might be interested in some aspect of this, and she would be our liaison to that, although we do want to get a letter off to the school faculty members saying, hey, this is real, this is authentic, what support can you offer the students for that day, for that event? We're anticipating the high school students being instrumental in facilitating children's activities. That wouldn't be us, but that's something that those high school students can really do. Games, craft project, and age-appropriate quick completion of craft projects on-site, quick one-hit wonders for those kids. We're trying to promote this as plastic-free, so we want to make sure as you talk to people about this in any way, shape, or form to discuss no balloons as decorations or no plastic mementos as toys or prizes or takeaways from any of the booths or displays. Ecology Club, Honor Society, Kim Free Graduation, and then we get to community groups. I just quickly put down Scouts. I didn't know if there would be any Scout that might take this on as a project. Some aspect of it they might think of as an Eagle Scout project, or they might do it for various badges and things that they earn. They might do it for
They've got
community
community
service.
involvement, merit badge. and,
Yeah, there's a lot of
they've got
angles for
stuff,
that.
Conservation.
Yeah, there's even ecology one now, sure. Newmarket Business Association might be a conduit for support, even seeing which businesses that we're not thinking of might take flyers or posters, or who might be interested in post-event putting up any kind of children's art that came out of this from the high school students. We're trying to encourage this to be a display and don't want it as a contest. We want it to be a very inclusive thing for participants. Other community groups that anybody here wants to offer in some feedback about ecology issues or turtles? Of course, LRAC is instrumental here. We need to work up a budget that we can propose to LRAC for support, such as the graphic setup fee for T-shirts or printing costs for flyers, programs, or information
Well,
sheets.
they've got money for that.
Yeah. I think they would really, yeah. They want to be a, help, so, I don't know if they'd be a
Yeah.
sponsor or co-sponsor, whatever. We haven't figured that out. but-
That's got to be firmed up, but they also, don't forget, have all the towns in their LRAC, LRACiness that would be able to have advertisements and marketing to say, hey, this thing is happening, let alone the members that come from all the towns that are in the LRAC
sure.
catchment area. We certainly want to have additional maps of our conservation properties and trails. I don't know what's going to be involved in printing more of those, or where are those lurking in town hall in boxes,
You
Ellen?
can put me in for that, because I think Bridget's going to help us with some GIS stuff, so.
Oh, thank you, Ellen,
Bridget's,
take that, all right.
Admin for Bart.
Library, Ellen and I are meeting with them in the next week or two to solidify the idea of having end caps in the library in May for books on turtles, children's books, related ecology topics. Displaying the Newmarket Conservation Commission bookmarks that we had printed up very recently. We are going to talk about running a book club again. Several years ago, there was a 4-month series that was on Zoom during COVID. We might do it Zoom, might do it in real life, but book club that could, thought process right now is January, February, March, kind of get a bridge through the winter.
Building
And-
up, that's great.
And that, I think that could be a lot of fun. And that's a great way to meet people. Maybe some people then would say, oh, I'll be an alternate on the Conservation Commission or volunteer for different projects. The books will be taken from, and I did bring printouts here if anybody wants to take this list of books, but I just quickly looked at American Horticultural Society and a couple of other vetted organizations to get book ideas for relevant conservation topics. Anything from trees to stone walls to turtles themselves to folklore about turtles, so lots of choices for book club discussions. And also a story walk. You might remember a couple years ago, we had one out, the library had one out at Piscassic Lozelle. Do they want to have another story walk? How would that look? What would that feel like? The exact times of program and presentations is to be determined, but right now, with great thanks to Ellen Snyder interfacing with these 3 groups, we do have a New Hampshire Fish and Game. Their non-game wildlife specialist is Josh Megazy. And he always says that my last name rhymes with legacy, so you can remember it that way if you look at it in print. He will be talking about turtles and the habitat and ecology around turtles. So that's a presentation. Sit down, look, and listen to Josh with a screen presentation, opposed to something else that's later in this document. The Turtle Rescue Group is going to do a demonstration and offer information on how we can help turtles. And interestingly enough, as Ellen, not to take words out of your mouth, but just to keep the pace here so I can keep talking quickly, when Ellen interfaced with them and said, hey, we're having this event, we'd love to have you participate, would you like to participate? They wrote back a really nice email saying, yeah, we're really interested, and it's noteworthy how many times they, Turtle Rescue Group, had heard about the traffic calming on Ash Swamp with the signs and the painting on the street. So they said they were offering like great kudos to Newmarket for being conscientious about turtles and wildlife. So they were very enthusiastic about being key presenters. And then Lindsay Butler has agreed to give an overview with the history and info to date at that time, coming up about the Ash Swamp Road project. So it'll be even further along then. She can talk about the history of it. And by then people will be familiar because they've probably driven there on a Saturday or maybe Wednesday on their way somewhere up Ash Swamp. But she will be able to tell more about it and give some of the history and where are these things in the world. So then I would get in touch with each of them to do more of a press release and have some information going out over the winter about Turtle Rescue Group, this is what they do, meetings, and talk about Turtle Rescue Group, and then at another time get information out about Lindsay's project, and at another time something else about coming from Josh about turtles. I also wanted to say that this is a slight sidebar, but Josh gives talks a lot and goes on hikes and walks and whatnot a lot. A couple of years ago, I had a radio program out of Portsmouth, and he was a guest on it once. At the end of it all, I said, okay, they're professional, but what is something you can tell us that just, if we leave with one thing that you said? And it was just so moving the way he said, well, there was this one time I was up in Colebrook, and I was paddling along the 7th, 1st, whatever is Connecticut Lake. That part escapes me, but he said, and I was so thrilled because I saw what was a very odd pattern, and I was looking for turtles and where nests were going to be, and there was this one pattern. I was just really taken, like, what is that? They said, then I looked and realized it was fresh, and then I looked and realized it was a 3-legged she turtle out laying eggs. So it just still gives me goosebumps because the way he talked about it and just being slow in a kayak and seeing something, in spite of being such an expert, that was just so different and interesting than seeing this turtle that was alive and well and kicking
Three
with
legs.
But the way he
That's
tells
cool.
the story was just beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah, so anyway, more information about Josh and about Lindsay and about Turtle Rescue Group to be smattered through various medias and channels throughout the winter time. We don't have the times yet confirmed for those 3 talks, but in a window roughly 9 to noon. The afternoon then features Josh, the aforementioned Josh Megsey. We'll take people on a field trip to the rail trail wetlands. You will have set traps the day before to showcase how turtle surveys are conducted. So that, going along with that, there'll be an extensive opportunity for the group who wants to go on that, no charge to the group, to talk about wetlands ecology, beavers, turtles, and what can we do to protect that specific area. And that dovetails into seeing, the plan is to see what the rec department might include. Namely, they have 2 buses we've used in the past as shuttle buses, and seeing what it could cost, if those are available, and what it would take to have one of the rec center drivers. There are people in town that are approved to be drivers of those vans. Maybe somebody could sponsor covering the cost of that person's salary wages on a Saturday and the van operation. So you could be in point X, you could be here, the van comes and takes you out to Josh's Walk, which is out there across from Rockingham Ballroom. Shuttle also, we might, as we get some more feedback about this or think about this, we might be able to suggest people even park at the rec center and take a shuttle here for the morning time talks. Birders Walk, bird ID, and tips for effective birders in the area. Location of walk, time, Julie, leader of Bird Walk, for the presenter of this aspect of the event. So if we have the tentative 9 start time here, is a birder walk when it could be spring migration. It's very exciting to think
Yes.
about. What time would you suggest, or what first comes to mind, and what would you like to share with us now about your vision of the birders walk?
I mean, 7 a.m. is ideal, but 8 a.m. might be better for getting people to actually come.
Neophyte birders, yeah.
Yes, and I mean, my first thought of where is Piscasset Greenway, just because it's convenient for me, but also a great wetland and space to be out there since we're doing the rail trail in the
Yeah.
afternoon. But the rail trail would also work, but I think to highlight another area,
Sure.
could also do Piscasset River Loisel, or the,
Wigan Farm with the big open space.
yeah, or the Audubon property over there too, so.
You don't have to have
Yeah.
a hard answer for that.
Yeah.
Mull it over. So talk a little bit about the logistics. If we were to say this thing is 9 to noon, or should we say 9:30, because if that's an 8 o'clock start, we want to give ample time for the birders walk and talk. And some of those people, a little Venn diagram, you might color them in as wanting to be here as well. Although they might be people that say, I'm good, happy you saved the turtles, that's great, thank you, Lindsay, but this is what I want to do on May 10th. And
We
then
could do 8 to 9 bird walk, 9:30 start here, if that works.
Or it could be 7:30 to 9.
7:30 to 9,
By the
yeah.
time people get there.
Yeah, meet halfway.
Yeah,
And here, they can look at what we hope are a lot of exhibits and a lot of pop-up tent things or tabletop displays, which I get to in just a minute too.
and
So-
earlier the better too, because especially if we did it by, at the Piscasset Greenway, the trail fills up on a Saturday morning, so the later you get in the morning, the more people and dogs are gonna be out there, so I would definitely lean towards earlier of that. I have 2 pairs of binoculars, I don't know if everyone else has that, yeah. It'd be BYOB.
Yeah, BYOB, that's cute. Binoc.
Yes. I've got tons of guides too, easy to bring some, and if we had a table of resources around too, like of different guidebooks for people to look at.
Yeah, I think
Wouldn't
with your
mind.
background, it could be interesting, so you kind of like rate them or vet them or say, hey, this is good if this is what you're looking for, but this is good if this is what you're looking
Yeah,
for.
yeah,
Nice. So do you want to think about that more?
yep, I'll flesh it out,
Get
yeah.
something to us for our
Yep.
next month's meeting?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome, thank you. Really, really, I think that's going to be very popular. We've had several bird walk things with Dick Lutz before, so I think there's a cadre of people that would be really interested in that. Ellen has interfaced with Suzanne Peterson from LRAC, who mentioned that one of their members, although I don't know which town he's representing, but Dave Steinberg is a herpetologist with UNH. He wants to engage in the community somehow. Don't know what he wants to offer, but I guess we'll hear more, or maybe, Ellen, can you, as you talk to Suzanne, can you say, hey, how do we get a hold of Dave Steinberg? What might he like to do or add?
Yeah, he could maybe go on the field trip with Josh.
Yeah, that could be good, because
Yeah.
it's hard outdoors to talk to
Yeah.
any more than 5 people at a time.
Yeah.
So even suggesting that, rather than adding something new, but strengthening something we've
Yeah.
got in place would
That'd
be
probably be
terrific.
best for him there.
LRAC does say they'd like to interface with David Carroll and see if they could buy, with their money, and then donate a book of his or some artwork of his to use as a raffle, and the funds would then go to, they had requested high school environmental club's lab supplies, which is a great answer, I think, because that's a hard thing to put in a budget the year before a faculty member would even know there was a faculty member interfacing with an environmental club, so I think that was a great idea of what to do with the money. LRAC also mentioned maybe there would be a kayak paddle, either with the rec kayaks or Seven Rivers kayaks, truly weather dependent. May 10th could not be ice out yet, or it could be already people swatting black flies, so that idea will evolve closer to the time. And LRAC is essential to help promote this event through their member towns and the connections they have with their members representing the different towns. T-shirts. I volunteered to take the lead on that. Later this winter, we can talk more about it, but I'll get some prices from a couple of different places. And then I also thought about pricing distribution in advance of the event. How are we going to promote the fact we even have T-shirts available? Sales of them, sales the day. And then in light of helping talk about no plastic please and having the town limit plastic use, there's some great design, or great textures and great sizes of canvas tote bags, so that might be something that we could have as either a promo thing or as an alternate for people to buy, not T-shirts.
We have there's a decent sized screen printing company in town
Yeah,
over by the bowling alley.
yeah, and they've got Lamprey River Screen Printing, and they've got a couple of nice brands of canvas tote bags, so. Or if you could think of other things that could be Turtle Fest sale things. Water bottles are far too persnickety. I would squelch that like right off the bat. We all have a certain way we want them to look or feel or be cleaned, and not need a PhD to figure out how to drink out of them. So I would think Mr. Fox composting, if somebody would like to contact the Mr. Fox company and see if they're interested in having a display for Turtle Fest, that would be super helpful. We've had Casella present before at a Conservation Commission meeting, and they did talk about materials they have for helping people understand what is recycled and what does it look like, how do you actually do it. Somebody might want to contact them and say, hey, this thing is coming up, do you guys want to have an information booth, or do you want to give us stuff to hand out if you don't want a person to come that day? They do have some nice handouts and some nice flyers. Nice is a silly word to use, but they have some effective and well-designed flyers and handouts. In the meantime, I would like it if you mull this, so we filled in a few names, that's terrific, and mull it over a little bit, see if you can think of other groups that you, or in your daily flight plan that you could interface with and say, hey, this thing is coming up, do you want to have a pop-up tent or a tabletop display? And that's kind of where it's at so far. So it's firming up pretty handily. I think it's really wonderful to have 3 presentations, because that's a real backbone of an event like this, with the spokes coming off of the wheel of the presentations, with a morning thing with Julie, an afternoon thing with Josh, and perhaps the UNH specialist that Suzanne Peterson mentioned, and then tabletop displays and activities for families and kids being run through the high school. And remember when the tables were set up the other way and Emma was there, she said, oh yeah, that she thought the high school kids, the high school students would be really happy to do something and get their hours that they need and whatnot, coming up with activities for children and families. So I think we've got something for everybody.
It's
Feels
a lot of
pretty-
work, this is very nice.
Well, it's really fun to think about, because some of the stuff we do is quite ethereal or takes $146,000. Yeah, all fares, yeah, contract, grants due in 6 months. It's way different than you just call the Casella guy and say, hey, May 10th, do you want a tabletop? You do? Oh, I'll call your secretary. Thanks, great. What's your name? Okay, bye. Follow up with an email. Boom, you got something done. It feels so good to have things that we can touch and have get done. And I think all these things I really tried to make it be, yes, you too can volunteer and touch something and get it done. And it should be really easy formatting and thinking like this to just have it all, like a deck of cards, but it just all comes back into being a nice deck all shuffled. So that's that. My
Great.
goal would be for next month to have you come up, I didn't mean to be like, to have Julie come up with some more about what would the bird walk look like, because that could be one of the first things we're putting out. Talking, I hope to have something in the e-news even coming up real soon about, this is migration time, let's turn off extra lights on your porch if you don't need it. Oh, by the way, interested in birds? Great, May 10th, spring migration, Julie, Conservation Commission. To be able to have this thing all kind of fit together. Also, we will have met with the library folks by then and be able to come back with some news about what are their in caps, are they going to do in caps, book talks, what are they thinking of that they can do and be a part of. And then the rec center piece about, yes, vans, you got to be kidding, vans, maybe vans, and a budget, which is going to be a little more thought process that we'll need to all really think about what's a budget that we can put together to formally have to ask LRAC for, requests from LRAC. Okay?
Thanks,
May
Chris.
10th.
Woo.
Awesome, awesome.
Great.
Turtle
thanks.
Fest 25.
Yeah, practice saying it. Would you like to come to my barbecue May 10th? I'm sorry, I've got Turtle Fest.
That's right, you gotta make sure you save the date.
And it's BYOB.
I do like that. I do like that. That's catchy.
Thank you, that's
Yeah,
one.
so, yeah, yeah, I was just gonna say, sure, like, got binoculars, and I'm thinking that graphic would be a little weird. Yeah.
All right, we got just a real quick, there's some more events happening. So this Saturday, there's another master plan event, Julie, I think mentioned it, 9 to noon for the public to participate and provide more input on the master plan process. And then October 18th and 19th, I don't quite have the times down, but that's when the downtown riverfront charrette is. So New Hampshire Plan is gonna, there'll be a process again for people to provide input on what they'd like to see in the downtown riverfront. So those are all open to the public, and the more people come, the better. And then you remember Kotri came and talked about the Great Bay Changemaker. So these are the evening programs that you can participate in if you're interested about advocacy around the Lamprey River. So I just wanted to put those up again. And then I wanted to hand out the bookmarks that we did, that Jess worked on, and then Chris helped with. And so there's 4, each of those has the 4 different ones. And
Oh,
I
it's a
think
set, there's a set.
There's a set.
Nope,
Yeah.
thanks.
Wait, go back, Turtle Fest 2025, exclamation point.
Cool. Too funny. These are nice.
So one of the things we're going to, as Chris said, we're going to talk to the library about, how we might work with them with the student days.
Thank you.
They're handsome, huh?
Yeah, we just did the design, so that was nice. And then
Very
got
nice.
the printed papers. So thank you for all that. And I think Bart ended up paying for them, so that was nice too. Thank you, Bart. So I think we did we do 100 of each or 4? Yeah.
Yes,
100 of
because
each.
we ended up with 400
Total, yeah.
individual bookmarks.
Yeah. So it's this sort of an experiment to see, what can we do with the library and get the word out. So one of the things we were talking about the library is, so like Leave the Leaves. And so the library would have a display about, landscaping and leaving leaves and why it's important. And then we got the bookmarks related to that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention,
Yes,
I
oh.
am the rep for conservation
For the 300.
with the
Sorry, I
300.
forget to add that one. Yes, please.
And as of last night, I have been volunteered to write. There is a committee on the 300 committee that is writing a book all about Newmarket and the history and everything else. And part of that is going to include somehow our conservation efforts and community. And one of the lead-ins that they had in mind was to use one of the properties to talk about the bigger picture. My thought, since I'm writing it, was Wigan Farm, given the history of ownership there and
Baseball.
yeah, Carlton Fisk and all that. But if anybody thinks of a different property in town that would make more sense, that has a more interesting story, or if you have, you know, information or history on Wigan Farm, let me know, because I'd be happy to use that as well.
Yeah, I think that would be great in terms of public. The other story that might be interesting, because it came up when we met with Dwayne Hyde and the LCHIP review committee that out of the Mitchell property, that the Mitchell family, you know, is selling their land for conservation, and they've had it since 1600s in that family. And they're conserving their land, so that's cool. And then Lynn Hilton, George Hilton, that's an easement, but he conserved his land, and that also was in the family, or it still is in the family for generations. And so those families have been in Newmarket for a very long time, and that might be an interesting, that might be something interesting too. I'm just offering that up as another piece of really interesting history in terms of the families that have been around a long time and that they've conserved their land.
Love it.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll consider those too.
All right, I think that's everything. Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.